I'll be forever grateful for Vinland Saga. For those joining me on this next step of my journey, hi. I'm Charles, and I'm still new to anime. For those curious, make sure to see the other videos on the channel of animes I've seen and covered so far. Coming from Attack on Titan and Death Note, I was recommended plenty of anime to get into, yet one stood out more than the others. Vinland Saga. From stunning visuals and intriguing characters, this historically inspired Viking adventure illustrated by Makoto Yukimura and beautifully adapted by Wit Studios was bloody stunning to say the least. Its level of maturity matched that of Attack on Titan, and if you know me, that's a good thing. All too often, the franchises and characters I grew up loving now tend to take a more comedic tone at serious moments that deserve severity. After my Attack on Titan video, I began to write a list of animes to start next from all the comments down below in that video. Doing that led me to Vinland Saga. I was taken back to realize that Season 1 serves as an introduction into a grainier main narrative of the series. Excited about the fact that there would be more to come, especially with Attack on Titan coming to a close soon. As for my experience with Vinland Saga, episode 1, Somewhere Not Here, had me. Unlike Thor's, I was on board. The mental state of Thor's trying to do good for his past actions made me truly just admire him as a person. So when Thorfinn was introduced, idolizing his father while not fully understanding him like someone at his age would, it created a hook and bait that I just didn't hesitate to bite. What came next was something truly special. Episode 2, Sword. The episode teaches Thorfinn's ideology in that it's steeped in that of a Viking and the battling to reach Valhalla, the horrors of which were seen only an episode ago. So when Floki arrives at the village with Yom's Vikings demanding Thor's the Troll rejoin the war by the king's decree after deserting, having Thorfinn see it all makes what his father Thor is trying to teach Thorfinn, that nobody has any enemies, near impossible. It's reasonable logic as to why Thorfinn acts the way he does, and it makes you care all the more for Thor's, as we've seen glimpses into the atrocities war has on a person. On one side, you have a man who's experienced it all and reached his philosophy that a true warrior doesn't need a sword, trying to pass his knowledge down to his son, who's too heavily influenced by the others around him. The rest of the village idolize Thor's for his strength, which Thorfinn completely misinterprets, laying the groundwork for this. Seeing Thorfinn's naive actions have such dire consequences really drove home that this show was the real deal for me. And more importantly, that Thorfinn was the one leading the charge as an S-tier protagonist, like easily S-tier. However, before talking about Thorfinn, I believe it's essential to talk about the other protagonist of this season, the GOAT that is askeladd. Those familiar with the show would know askeladd is half Welsh and Danish, who's named after the legendary Welsh warrior, growing to despise the Danish heritage from a young age due to the neglect for his mother, at the same time dealing with his father being the leader of that very town. His father dawned plenty of new sons from different mothers, having them all live and be treated well, except for Lucius, the child he was unaware of who now is called askeladd, a nickname given to a boy that was always covered in ash, coal, and horse manure from working in the stables and blacksmith. It's here we learn Askeladd's facade, a facade that he'd wear from the moment we're introduced to his character to just before his death. One that he'd partially reveal upon Thor's death, upholding his word as a warrior upon his ancestor, Artorius. The man literally declares he's Welsh, but does so in what I believe only Thor's would understand, therefore keeping his facade while everyone other than Thor's are oblivious to the origin of Artorius. And I just can't help but think that askeladd had to have calculated and read the room even before announcing it. His facade is that of a Viking, the very thing he hates and wishes to protect Wales from. He swears by Odin at first with his duel against Thor's, doing so snidely. It's so obvious with hindsight that he initially doesn't even care about the honor of the duel and will do anything he needs to achieve his goal. However, I believe that as askeladd duels Thor's, he comes to realize that Thor's isn't some savage Viking, but a calculated fighter who's worthy of his admiration and respect. As he loses and speaks to Thor's, it's this line that makes Askeladd's demeanor change and his facade drop.
本当の戦士には剣などいらぬ。トールズあんた 俺たちの狩猟にならんか。
This isn't said by Askeladd the Viking. It's said by Lucius Artorius Custos. Askeladd realizes that Thor's ideology is what he wants to achieve but knows that he never could. So instead, he's willing to follow Thor's for a brief moment, yet it's short-lived, as he can tell from Thor's body language that he's a man with other responsibilities, and that he himself mustn't forget why he's doing what he's doing. So he puts the facade back on, his demeanor once again shifting as he plays the offer as a joke. Initially, I was fooled by his facade, but not convinced by it. Upon my first watch, from the first moment of seeing Askeladd, he was clearly dubious and had something else to him, until the latter half of the season where his true self is just out on display more and more, until he just tells Thorfinn his past and it's all revealed. You see, Askeladd is cunning, intelligent, yes, but most importantly at his core, devoted his life from his childhood pain.
これから先、俺が死んでからその先、どう生きるつもりだ、トルフィン。
Now, you connect the dots for me here. Who else strives to achieve something from the pain he felt as a child, doing anything to achieve it in any way he sees fit? Who does Askeladd see himself in and amuse? If you said Thorfinn, then wow, you're so off the mark, it's not even you're right. Yes, it's obvious. Through this lens, it's Thorfinn. The similarities between Askeladd and Thorfinn are very intentional and, dare I to say, the whole point behind this part of the series. If not for Askeladd, then Thorfinn wouldn't be who he is in nearly every aspect of his life. Like, holy shit, Askeladd really stole the father role of Thor's. Askeladd would humor Thorfinn as he pursued Askeladd in revenge, perhaps seeing himself in Thorfinn like when he was young and sought revenge towards his father. Although, unlike Askeladd, Thorfinn couldn't enact his revenge like he had as a child, refusing to kill him in his sleep, choosing the warrior's path of defeating him in combat like his father Thor's did. The irony sets in here for me, as Thorfinn truly believed it would honor his father. It just hurts to see.
戦場で手柄を立ててみな。ノルドの戦士なんだろ。そしたらご褒美に決闘してやるよ。
約束だな。
そうそう、戦士の約束ってやつだ。
Thorfinn's journey is one that, like I mentioned earlier, I adore. Although I've never had to fight in life or death battles, I felt connected to Thorfinn. His mentality is something that resonated with me deeply. His way of viewing things, although seemingly simplistic, had lots to say. Earlier in his time with Askeladd, and at this point in the show, episode 6, Thorfinn is still shown caring for others as they care for him. This episode is one of the strongest of the season, taking time away for Thorfinn to process his life without the dread of living every passing moment with Askeladd. And although brief, we can clearly tell Thorfinn's expressions changes at moments, reflecting that of his younger self, someone not consumed entirely by their goal. With that, Thorfinn forsakes his former self. The more time Thorfinn spends with Askeladd, the more he reflects him. Whether by Askeladd's design or unintentionally within the confines of the story, Makoto Yukimura clearly wants the audience to notice this, right? The further Thorfinn goes to complete his goals, the further away he gets from Vinland Saga, a place free of his life's troubles. He's trapped in a mental prison, one that compels him to push forward with what he thinks he should do. It's this part of Thorfinn that appeals to me, the part that I can understand. Up until finishing this season and working on this video, I found myself watching shows from a list, pursuing animes I thought I'd like similar to Attack on Titan, instead of giving animes outside of my comfort zone a try. And this isn't just for animes, but shows and movies as a whole, and the parallels I felt with the show and myself really got me to start questioning how I was approaching things I wanted to do, and by that extent, things I wanted to do in my own life, separate from media, and hitting me on a genuine level. One of the first characters that feeds into Thorfinn, furthering him on his vengeful story, is a character I've never seen want to fight more than potentially anyone else in fiction. Like, my goodness, I love him, and I'm sure others too, and it's Thorkel. The first we see of Thorkel is when he fought with Thors during their youth in Jomsvikings, reappearing in the show in episode 9, fighting against Denmark and the Jomsvikings there. Doing so simply because he loves fighting. What's not to enjoy about that trope? He demands screen presence. He's just an absolute unit.
エドモンド王子くらいだったよ。この国はもうダメだね。どうでは。ってことはつまり、お前らと戦った方が面白いってことさ。は？
Where it gets especially interesting for me, however, is seeing Thorfinn's development again, not in appearance but in his mindset. We see that he's become a better fighter and that he's combat smart, deploying strategy against askeladd. However, outsmarting askeladd is something that Thorfinn is a ways away from at that stage. For me, his intelligence for battle really shined when he fought Thorkel. Thorfinn assessed the situation quickly and adapted on the fly, bringing attention to the fact that Thorfinn is a lot more capable as a protagonist from that point onwards. Even though he loses that fight too, making it clear that he still has a lot more development to be had, it made me eager to see what he'd start to face off against next. Also setting up the future rematch between Thorfinn and Thorkel, adding that extra layer to it, as I wanted to see Thorfinn succeed due to his struggle and development since their first encounter.
おい、戦士トルフィンよーい、楽しかったな。またやろうな。今度は蹴りつけような。約束だぞ。
The other thing Thorkel adds to the story is highlighting another perspective on being a warrior. Unlike Thor's, Thorkel lives to fight as it's the only thing he enjoys, making him content with life. It creates an interesting, challenging ideology for the characters to adapt from in the show, while reflecting known Vikings ideology in history. It's here we see Thorfinn's growth in that he doesn't revel in the idea of battle and war like he used to, stating,
戦の何がそんなに面白いんだ。
It's common knowledge to Vikings in the show, as they bring it up multiple times that dying in combat is something to idolize, as they believe it lets them go to Valhalla. Even Thorfinn mentions this as a child. Their equivalent of heaven, Thorkel lives up to this and assumedly inspires others around him to share the same mindset, just perhaps not to the same degree. These ideas resonate with me, not in the sense of battle, but the presentation of varying ideologies. The latter half of the season hones in on the plot and furthering the world's narrative, fleshing out more of what is to come, with the template being history itself. It's this part of the season where we get to see askeladd and Thorfinn divest themselves to their goal, taking on large risks and challenges in order to pursue their revenge. Thorkel serves as a fantastic momentary antagonist for them during this arc, imposing, charismatic, and with the knowledge of Thors that neither we or Thorfinn knew. These just made him more intriguing as a character, let alone an antagonist. With Thorkel capturing Prince Canute in hopes that he'd be able to fight against the Danish rescuing parties, he cares little for actually fighting off the Danish invasion of England. Instead, he simply just wants to be a warrior. Little does he know that he perfectly sets up askeladd up to finally becoming the savior of Wales he'd waited for so long. Askeladd, playing the role of a Danish Viking, has now been given the opportunity to seize a seat of power in Denmark to ward off any future attacks on his homeland, Wales. However, we're constantly reminded that he doesn't just act like a Viking, he is a Viking. Askeladd still pillages and slaughters, taking what he pleases. So blinded by a sense of selfish nobility and justice for the things he cares for has led him to sharing no empathy for anything or anyone else. One who shares his very experience is Thorfinn. His dreams of Thor's haunt him, his father, his conscience, pleading him to stop seeking revenge, as has resulted in him enacting the very people he's grown to despise. He's become a Viking, the likes of which murdered his father. Over time, caring less for others as long as he can duel askeladd to defeat him for his own twisted sense of warrior's justice, heeding not the words his father imparted him with. The two share scars from early childhood experiences which have rippling effects that develop their ideologies and beliefs. Fortunately for Thorfinn, he's still young, whereas for askeladd, he's all too grown up. Yet as other characters look in from the outside, they aren't able to tell, with only a couple seeing further into the cunning leader facade and the fearless, relentless warrior. The symbolic nature of Thorfinn and askeladd in this regard perfectly sets up the finale of the season, which I will get into soon enough. But for now, back onto this arc with Thorkel and Canute, as it's important. Now, although I know certain events happened in history, the way Makoto Kimura weaves the plot with the main characters is just superb. I never felt like the world around the characters was changing without them having to interact with it. This form of active storytelling, although simple, was executed to a T and made the journey incredible to watch. One such pivotal moment in the season is when askeladd is betrayed by his men while being hunted down by Thorkel. It's here we get a long anticipated rematch of my two favourites, Thorfinn versus Thorkel. After having his men turn on him, fighting against them and sending Thorfinn and Bjorn away with the prince, with Thorkel finishing off the traitors, left askeladd on his knees with Thorkel. Askeladd's situation was as bleak as it could get until... This duel closes out this arc and spans across 3 episodes. Safe to say, it consists of a lot of character development. Thorfinn fights to preserve askeladd in order to duel him without realizing that he's about to duel an arguably better fighter. Throughout the 2 clashes, we learn more of Thorkel and his motives and goals, expanding his character outside of just being a brick shithouse warrior. It's here we learn Thorkel's ideology formed from his past with Thor's. Filled with regret for not going with Thor's in his youth, Thorkel questions Thorfinn throughout their duel in hopes for an answer that's dwelled on his mind for 15 years. What is a real warrior? He believes he isn't one and yearns to be, going so far as joining England in the war against his homeland to continue fighting as a warrior as he knows it, just in hopes to find the answer to the question Thor's presented him all those years back, creating a link between him and Thorfinn, enriching their relationship. On the opposite end is Thorfinn, who wishes to know more about his father, a side that he didn't know. Thorkel, feeling content with their duel by a certain point, indulges Thorfinn and shares his past with Thor's. This had me on the edge of my seat to find out more about Thorfinn and Thorkel, learning of different revelations such as Thorfinn being the grandchild of the leader of the Young's Vikings, who's the oldest brother of Thorkel, making them related. Each bit of knowledge learnt just adds to the stakes of the duel's outcome. It did nothing but make me more invested in Thorkel, as he too was looking for what it meant to be a real warrior. Askeladd, noticing Thorfinn struggling, helps Thorfinn as he holds Askeladd's fate in this battle, revealing how to defeat Thorkel. So bittersweet as the two make an interesting team up while reminded they're still arch enemies. With Askeladd and Thorfinn working together, they overcome the giant Thorkel. Yet with Thorkel's men going against his wishes, they subdue Thorfinn until someone saves them from their bind, Prince Canute. From the moment he's introduced to the story, he's being used as a passive character for the narrative, having other characters use him to further what they need in their respective arcs. Whether it's the king trying to kill his son, or Thorkel capturing the prince to fight more, or even Askeladd using him to secure Welsh's safety, Canute is forced to do others' bidding in each situation he's in. I believe this is the case as he's reserved and a passive character by nature. His timidness is reflected with how he interacts with the world. Prince Canute being introduced like this really sets his character up for change and growth similar to Thorfinn at the start of the series. And with the recent death of Ragnar, Prince Canute's protective father figure, he's left bare to the world around him. Setting up the penultimate moment of his shift in character isn't till the end of the arc where Thorkel is hunting him down alongside Askeladd. It is here he forms his new ideology, alongside the priest who'd learned about Thor's from Askeladd's men, the prince's resolve. The loss of love in people's hearts, the misunderstanding of the meaning to life and death. The prince with his new resolve becomes fearless in the face of death.
そなたたちの戦いに生と死に意味を与えてやろう。それが王の務めだ。
The levels of care and creative execution here is, again, top-notch. He unites the characters Thorfinn, Askeladd, and Thorkel, who are blinded to true meaning, perfectly setting up the finale of the 4 of them going up against King Sweyn. Askeladd chooses to serve Prince Canute in order to see out his goal of protecting Wales from the Danes. Thorfinn goes along with it in order to get his duel with Askeladd as per usual. Thorkel joins in order to see the prince's resolve, and where it will take him in the future, in hopes of his soul becoming a real warrior. At each of their cores is resolve, an ideology of their own. Each character is equipped with the means of making a change to the world around them. Going into the last 4 episodes of the season, I was somewhat expecting good things, considering the IMDb listings and reviews. However, I got a lot more than what I bargained for, and in a very good way. Episode 21 was hard to watch at times, Not because it was bad, but because it was just a struggle to see Thorfinn reject Leif's offer. Leif is one of the last people who can see through the relentless warrior Thorfinn. Leif knows what Thorfinn was once like. So when he tells Thorfinn about his mother's health and that Leif finally thinks he succeeded in finding Thorfinn after all of these years, we are brutally reminded that Thorfinn isn't leaving the path of revenge he's set for himself, pushing away one of the last people who truly cares for him. My God, the music and the voice acting here, it's
アステラットが野郎が生きて飯を食い腐たれてる間は十分じゃねえ十分じゃね
えなんということか。あの陽気だった幼子が。
Yeah, like I said, it's a struggle to watch. Afterwards, it made me think of what things I've pushed away in a pursuit of something else. What opportunities have I missed out on? Not a nice question to have on the brain, yet one that made me care for Thorfinn more and wish for his life just to get better. And paralleling one of the few people who can see Thorfinn for more than just a fearless warrior is the direct next scene. Askeladd and Bjorn. Askeladd helping Bjorn and the two bantering together really goes a long way to display that they have a true friendship. Bjorn understands Askeladd, which makes this just as hard to watch.
アシュラッド。お前、足の具合はどうだ？しこたま矢を食らったからな。だが、まあ、ちっとぐれ剣を使うのに触りはねえ。そうか。なら明日。
Both Thorfinn and Askeladd are about to lose the two people who truly care for them, all in the sake of carrying out their revenge. That just ate at me. Askeladd's plan had me hooked with anticipation.
ってわけか、トルフィン。
Askeladd vs Thorfinn, here, now. I wasn't ready, but oh my God, I was on board. Although my eagerness quickly shifted to sadness, like I've been saying, they're doing Bjorn's payoff, literally a scene after he just foreshadowed his death. I hadn't enough emotions to work with.
俺のたった一人の友達だ。
The beginning of the end of the season really told me that it'd be a heart-wrenching ride. With Bjorn's death going into episode 22, nobody was left to see through the facade of Askeladd. So it's here, during Thorfinn and Askeladd's duel, that Askeladd drops the facade with Thorfinn, Canute and Thorkel. No need for it anymore. They all share the same enemy now, except for Thorfinn. It's clear that Askeladd saw some part of himself in Thorfinn. However, Askeladd is willing to do anything to reach his goal, whereas Thorfinn has always been unwilling to do the same. Askeladd is sick of Thorfinn not understanding and developing like Askeladd himself did. So he decides that he'll tell Thorfinn how to kill someone you hate. It's a line that separates him and Thorfinn. And it's when Askeladd says why he won't become king. It's because he is a Viking. He knows what he's become, whereas Thorfinn still doesn't realize it at that point. Thorfinn is still blind as a result of rage, a perpetual rage that he's left himself to fester in, producing an arrogance that I can somewhat relate to. Episode 23 finally has our characters in the building with King Sweyn, and the absence of music or chatter really adds to how tense it all is. And towards the end of the king's speech, when he mentions Wales, the piano and the detailed close-up of Askeladd had me as shocked as he was. This twist of Askeladd being outsmarted by King Sweyn either intentionally or unintentionally subverts Askeladd's master strategist mind that he typically gets him where he needs. Although how tense the scenes are, the likes of which Prince Canute doesn't initially deal or receive a blow, a great use of subversion that shakes up the character Askeladd in one of the most dire positions he's ever been in. His whole world and goal that he'd been working towards had just turned into his worst nightmare. I originally thought the scene where Leif finds Thorfinn pulled at my heartstring. Safe to say, I wasn't ready for Leif to find Thorfinn when he was at his lowest. The expressions of their faces really say it all to begin with in this interaction they have. It's not clearly stated, but it's hard not to imagine what Thorfinn was thinking at this moment. His entire resolve, like Askeladd's, had now been turned upside down. The way Leif tries to meet with Thorfinn more openly, doing his best to be understanding without just pleading, it's well written and executed with the music swelling. Leif shares his resolve as a warrior. It really feels like there's a chance for Thorfinn to change, with every part of me wanting, hoping, no, needing him to.
フィンランドならフィンランドならきっと
Next we see Thorfinn at Leif's ship. It worked. Thanks to Askeladd's lecture and Leif's persuasion, Thorfinn, for the first time in a long time, was starting to see again. I was so happy to think that even if you're so far gone into doing something a certain way, there's still hope for change. Sadly, however, my joy didn't last long. Even on rewatching, the way Yoji Udia's voice sounds as he calls for Thorfinn is nothing but pain to hear. As for Askeladd, he's forced to choose between his life mission of saving whales or Prince Canute. Even after giving a speech of a lifetime, it seems like his character is in an immovable position until he snaps, insulting the king to his face, his luck and plans failing him from what I could tell. It seemed out of character when in reality, it was just the real him, no more facade.
そりゃあだ名だ。我が母より授かりし真の名を教えてやろう。ルキウス・アルトリウス・カストゥス。よこそがこのブリタニアの地を滑るべき正当の王である。
Killing the king and entrusting Wales to Canute, saving them both. Although tragic, it was fulfilling to see Askeladd fight to the bitter end, hoping that he had done it, saved his home and lived up to his mother's stories. A climactic conclusion that simultaneously finishes Askeladd's arc while leaving a lasting impression on Thorfinn and myself. Vinland Saga was really what I needed, not just as an anime, but as a refresher to watch different things. It was so well made, and I'm enthralled in it now as one of my favorites, just period. It cemented the ideology of not watching things for the sake of having to experience of saying I watched it, but rather watching something for the sake of just actually experiencing it. Even going beyond at times, it reminded me to stay open-minded whenever I can in my own life, making sure to do things more in the moment and experiencing them in a more engaged way than just going through it. I am truly grateful for Vinland Saga. It gave me a better understanding of my own mindset, my own resolve. The entire season has Thorfinn come to terms with the death of his father. Vinland showed me the power of immersing yourself into a set of characters and a world. Thorfinn many times in his childish youth blamed others for what happened. I know for certain as someone who has lost a parent at that age, I couldn't process what happened, what it meant, and where to go from there. It's such an isolating and lonely experience. I too felt like a slave to my own emotions and feel as if years were wasted, entering a dark place, not understanding my own thoughts. Blaming others is a simplification. Thorfinn did not just do that. I didn't just do that. That fear, that vengeance, it moves from person to person. You start by blaming others, those that you think are responsible for such a travesty, such pain, the people you think took this important figure from you. You can become bitter. That sadly can devolve into blaming the person. They are gone, yet cop the full force of your hate. Those feelings getting darker, meaner. Why are you gone? Why did you leave me? I hate you. A mess of emotions, a mind spiraling. That hatred over time can become a plague, eating at yourself like a parasite. At 22 years old, Thorfinn gave me a reflection that I did not expect. At 22 years old, it shows what an ugly mirror of living a life like this can look like. Season 2 dives deeper into this aspect, and it's here that I want to announce that if you want to be a part of that video, listen up. Season 2 of Vinland Saga was a monumental period of my life, and to showcase this, the next video that I'm going to do, part 2 to this, is going to dive deep into my own personal life and just how I resonate deeply with the themes within that season. However, I know the show is much bigger than just myself, and to really highlight this, I really think that I want you guys to be a part of the video. So to be a part of the video, make sure to record and to tag me on Twitter, on TikTok. I've got my handles here. It's either @CharlesJ Olsen or @Dare2Entertain. And to really answer the following questions with sincerity. What part of Vinland Saga speaks to you? Are there aspects of Season 2 specifically that have now changed the way you go about life? What core messages and core themes do you see yourself in? And if Vinland Saga does indeed sit amongst your favorite shows of all time, let me know that also in this video. I want to try and include as many of you guys as I can. At the moment, it's going to be a sequence near the end of the video, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit everybody, but I just want to try. I really just want to show how vast of a reach this show has. And if there are any other creators that you might enjoy, make sure to @ them to get them to know that I'm doing this and it might be something they're interested in. I've already got a few anime TikTokers and YouTubers interested, and we're working on how to go about it, and it's just also very exciting. Thank you to everyone who's watched this video, really means a lot, but also make sure to leave a like and to turn the notification bell when you subscribe to the channel. We've also started a Patreon if you saw last video, so if you want to see your name here or for me to verbalize it, to say like thank you to Nick Samwell who is in the Great Mate tier, make sure to go to the link down below to see what tiers we offer, what rewards and what perks. There's a Discord, you get a special role in that. But yeah, make sure to check the Patreon, it's really exciting what that can unlock for us as a channel. Lastly, thank you to Leon for writing the script to this video. He's been insane lately to be able to write these massive deep dives into Vinland Saga. His part 2 script is unreal. Until next time, see you later guys.